Good afternoon, Cincinnati, Dayton, and Lexington GMs. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes of your time as you near the end of your day. I hope you had a great meeting so far, celebrating Wendy's 50-year anniversary and Dave Thomas's legacy and key principles. Ken and Kevin have asked me to spend a little time with you and share my experience with Dave and what giving back meant to him. For those of you who don't know me, I was a franchisee in the Cincinnati market for over 18 years. My wife Sherry and I sold our restaurants in August to the Mui organization. For those of you who do know me, hello again. It's great to be with you this afternoon. What most of you don't know is less than 4 weeks after selling our restaurants, I was diagnosed with a rare form of blood cancer called amyloidosis. It just affects a few thousand people a year. An amyloid is basically a bad protein that produces rapidly in a person's bone marrow and is sent all over the body. This bad protein sticks to organs, and in my case, my heart, kidneys, GI tract, voice box, feet, and who knows where else. This protein forms a fibrous, almost bamboo-type strain that sticks to these organs, and if left untreated, will shut them down and eventually lead to death. Several years ago, the chance of survival was only 6 months. Luckily, for Sherry and I and my family, due to advances including better drugs to combat the disease and research that is making advances every day, if caught in time, chemotherapy and other treatments, like a stem cell transplant, can stop the production of these bad proteins and eventually eliminate them from the body. I'm on that journey now, 16 weeks into chemo treatment, and I have a stem cell transplant scheduled sometime in late March. Now that you have a little background on my condition, let me see if I can tie it into how I became aware of blood cancers, and specifically LLS. As I told you earlier, Sherry and I had been franchisees for over 18 years. About half that time was spent working for Wendy's. Of that amount of time, 17 years, 8 of those were spent with the international division in company operations down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. One of the advantages, or some say disadvantages, of working in Fort Lauderdale was the fact that Dave and Lorraine Thomas lived there most of the year. For me, it turned out to be an advantage. My boss in the international division was a man named Ed Gonzalez. Ed was not only my boss, but turned out to be a great friend and mentor, helping me develop my business skills and decision-making that eventually would lead to me becoming a franchisee. I came out to find out that Dave and Ed not only had a business relationship, but shared a deep personal relationship as well. They were both senior leaders in an organization called the Freemasons. For those of you who are fans of Tom Hanks in the movie The Da Vinci Code and Nicolas Cage's National Treasure, Masons were an important part of that storyline in that time in history. The Freemasons are still around today. I soon learned that this bond was stronger than the business relationship they had with Wendy's. That relationship would be evident as time passed. This now leads to my first exposure to blood cancer, when Ed was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in early 1997. I can remember being in the office and Ed getting chemo treatments, coming back to the office and getting sick in his trash can. I watched and remember, and I wondered why he just didn't go home. Nobody would have cared. But he later told me that a big part of his battle to beat cancer was determination and attitude. And I can tell you, I can remember that to this day. Ed's fight continued for several years, where he went into remission, and the cancer would come back 3 more times. During those years, Ed left the company and became a franchisee in South Florida. During one of Ed's setbacks, he had to be in the hospital for complications from radiation he was undergoing at the time. On several occasions, I got a phone call from Dave Thomas We'd meet up and go down and visit Ed during his stay. I remember one car trip down to see Ed. It was late 1999. Dave turned to me and said that we can do something about this blood cancer thing. And for those of you that know Dave, he always seemed to make things very simple so people could understand. Dave went on to talk about the importance of giving back and that Ed was going through, what he was going through was personal. It was really personal to Dave, more than business. He was our friend. We went to see Ed and Dave is awesome. He was encouraging and indicated to me that we, and I interpreted that as meaning Wendy's, could do more, and this blood cancer was treatable. It was my first exposure to how giving back was so important to Dave. Ed came through that part of his fight and again went into remission. Time passed and Sherry and I became franchise owners and moved to Cincinnati in May of 2000. Unfortunately, Dave died in January of 2002, ironically from liver cancer. Ed came to Columbus and he, Sherry and I attended Dave's funeral. To this day, I don't know if Dave would have taken the support for LLS any further with Wendy's. My feeling is he would have. For me, that was one of those life-altering moments. I knew from that point I would someday take it further if I had the chance. Ed and I stayed close, as franchisees do. We talked regularly on the phone, discussing the pros and cons of franchise ownership. One day I received a call from Sherry and she let me know that Ed had died from complications from his treatment for his lymphoma. That day was April 11th, 2003. His funeral was in Miami, Florida. And I can remember talking to his wife, Alina, and letting her know that I'd do more to help to ensure other families didn't have to go through what she and the kids were going through at that time. Ed was only 50 years old when he passed. Ironically, during that time, we met and became friends with a guy named Vince Hopkins here in Cincinnati. Many of you know Vinny, and he's spoken to the group many times about his experience with follicular cancer. Between the experience with Ed and our new experience with Vinny, Sherry and I knew that we had to do more, and now we could do more with our Wendy's restaurants to support LLS and to help find a cure. That's when Sherry and I began working with the local LLS team and doing fundraising to support Light the Night in Cincinnati. We did whatever we could to raise money to support the research that they were doing to fight blood cancer. Our managers came up with great ideas, sponsoring car washes, selling candy, asking customers for donations. We even did a thing called Give a Buck, Get a Buck. We donated chili to the walk, and our managers and crew were great, supporting the LLS cause all the way. We had t-shirts made and formed walk teams. We can remember, and we talked about this, we raised $1,972 the first year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we were so proud. We continued that support for several years. We started to get a little more creative on how we raised money. Eventually, through the support of the franchise owners in the Cincinnati market, we expanded our efforts from 3 stores to nearly 100. Our walk teams became much larger, and our fundraising effort became much more sophisticated. We were able to now advertise. We could put up POP at the restaurants. We sponsored a coupon book campaign, and the results started to climb. Today, over 250 Wendy's participate to raise money to support LLS. Wendy's efforts have even expanded beyond Light the Night and into team and training. Your support of Ken and Kevin and the bike riding team representing Wendy's has been nothing short of spectacular. The only downside that I see is to haven't seen those two in their bike shorts. Not great. Thanks to many of you in the room today and the continued support of the franchise owners who have shown great leadership in supporting LLS, the amount we have raised has grown to over $1,500,000 in total raised by Wendy's over those many years. I know our local LLS representatives Tom Carlton, Don Berryman, and Maggie Evans are proud of the relationship with Wendy's, and we are fortunate to have such passionate advocates of this great cause supporting your efforts. Dave Thomas would be proud of each of you, and proud that Wendy's is helping keep his vision of giving back alive and making a difference for so many families in the Cincinnati and Dayton markets. Wendy's is proud of each of you, and most importantly, you should be proud to be part of such a great legacy that Dave started 50 years ago. By supporting LLS, each of you are giving back and making lives better for your coworkers, your customers, your friends, and your family members that are or may become afflicted with this disease known as blood cancer. Every blood drop you sell makes a difference. Every dollar you raise helps fund research that can lead to a clinical trial, or even better, a drug that can cure a form of blood cancer. As Dave said those many years ago, this is more than business, it's personal. Your efforts mean something to many people, and through those efforts, you're helping to fund hope for many families. Those families depend on your efforts. My family and I depend on your efforts. It's more than business, it's personal. We are Wendy's, and giving back is part of what we stand for. On behalf of your franchise ownership, the LLS team, thank you for all you do to support LLS. And I would ask that you go back to your restaurants and help make 2019 the best fundraising year in our history with LLS. Until we see each other again, go Wendy's.